Hello, welcome to the New Stack Makers, a podcast where we talk about at-scale application development, deployment, and management. Thanks for joining us today. This is Swapnil Bhartiya for the New Stack, and we are here at OpenStack Summit, Sydney, Australia. And today we have with us David Safaii from Trilio. So, David, before we kind of deep dive into this topic, can you quickly tell us a bit about yourself and and Trilio, what Trilio does?
Sure. Thanks for having me. I'm the CEO of Trilio Data. I've been with the company for a couple of years now. Trilio is the only native data protection solution for OpenStack. We've been built from the ground up for cloud. The founder of the company, Murali Balcha, was originally out of the CTO's office at EMC, and he first started with a specification that he put out into the world called Raksha, which is a data protection solution for OpenStack. We quickly closed sourced that, and again, as I mentioned, this is built for the cloud from the ground up, so adhering to the characteristics of cloud, so that being forever scalable, self-service, multi-tenant, etc. All the requirements for cloud as a customer's cloud expands or contracts, it should grow with that customer.
What kind of customers you're serving? Then we'll go into technologies.
Okay, sure. Our customers are organizations very large, global entities, to actually very small. It just depends upon where these customers are on their OpenStack journey. Some of our customers are very large telcos and service providers. Some are automotive. Many are within the financial services environments, and also media. Our customers are the inbound that we do see comes from Europe, comes from South Africa, comes from Japan, and of course in the States. And a lot of these people are now again at a point of bringing production workloads into their cloud and have that requirement for data protection, whether they're servicing their customers internally or they're providing an external service. As a matter of fact, we actually even have small customers that are service providers that man 2, 3 node, 4 node clusters and provide a public service, even in like Eastern Bloc countries. So again, our customers are very large to very small, and to service those customers, you have to be easy to deploy, easy to manage, and easy to support, and Trilio has all those things.
So now can you talk about what kind of actual services you're offering to these customers?
Yeah, the data protection components of what we do.
Right.
So within the OpenStack framework, we are a self-service backup solution. So within either Horizon or whatever portal that you may be using, we show up as just a backup tab. No one really even knows that Trilio is there, but the tenant creates their own backup policies, and the tenant also recovers by themselves. So you've now removed central IT out of this. Tenants manage their own environments, and when we talk about backup, we're not talking about just files and folders and things of that nature. We're talking about the exact moment in time. So it's image level capture, and so a tenant may have an application that goes across multiple virtual machines. We capture the app, the OS, the compute, the network settings across the virtual machines, the security groupings, the policies, the metadata, and the data in its entirety. So it's that exact moment in time. Now, if I am an end user, I'm a tenant, I capture that exact moment in time, and I can quickly recover. That's just as, if not even more important, is the speed of recovery. This is where, without Trilio, people fail all over the place. So now if I recover that exact moment in time, I know the application blueprint, I know its metadata, I know its data. And I can either recover in place, or the tenant can choose to recover into a different availability zone or a different cloud, right? So as a byproduct, now I have migration. So Trilio protects, it recovers, and gives you migration. And a byproduct of migration perhaps could be capturing production environment, recovering it into a sandbox, and now a test dev can test against production environment. So there's a lot of great use cases here. But you need to understand that full environment. Also, if I'm thinking about things like compliance, if I do want to invite my business units to participate in this wonderful cloud that I've built, well, compliance, there may be SLAs, there may be regulatory needs. So that, again, that ability to recreate that exact moment in time becomes a little more critical. And that ability to recover rapidly is just as, if not even more critical. It's a great strength of Trilio's, and we help save a lot of companies.
Yeah, so let's talk about, when we talk about data protection in cloud. So first of all, what kind of data are we talking about here?
It could be anything from transaction type stuff. It could be test dev environments. It could be information within banks. It could be NFV type stuff if I need to recover the network very quickly. Again, it's about speed of recovery. So there's a lot of different types of data that we do protect. Again, it's the application and it's the data together. It could be WordPress environments. So we're seeing a lot of people who leverage OpenStack and its beautiful scale and elasticity for hosting WordPress and providing that as a service to people. Well, you want the ability to back that up. You want the ability to help people recover if need be, or if there's corruption, rewind the clock. So it's a time machine, if you will.
So how different is this data protection versus what else is already available in the market?
Yeah, good question. So if you look at traditional legacy-based data protection vendors, the code is 25 years old. It requires hardware. It requires agents. Trilio is software only. It's downloadable. It's easily installable, part of your infrastructure. No agents, which is critical here, because you think about now from managing my cloud, and if I have to grow my cloud or contract it, managing agents to recover environments becomes just another pain to manage here. So again, Trilio is built for cloud from the beginning. The legacy folks are not. The legacy guys do not have true multi-tenancy. They don't have the self-service capabilities that customers do require today. So what we're doing here for OpenStack is just the beginning, right? We talk about cloud data protection. So if we do this today with OpenStack, and as people start this journey across clouds, well, we become that linchpin for you.
The OpenStack adoption is kind of increasing now. I may be wrong, but now a lot of people are moving it from developer to the production system. So do you also see some kind of spike in usage of your service?
Yes, very much so. It's been interesting. I think there's a lot of people, there's a lot of OpenStack out there that's not publicized, if you will. When people have started down this journey, they've worked really hard at building these clouds. And early within the OpenStack community, it was harder to install, harder to configure, and that's become much easier today, which is helping with the adoption of this cloud. Now that people have developed a great cloud where they invite their business units to participate, well, these business units have SLAs. They have demands of their engineering team. And it's at that stage where all of a sudden Trilio gets a call. People start doing the research around backup and they say, oh, I need a native solution, I need a self-service solution, and then they end up calling us. So it's been interesting, and yes, there's been a tremendous spike that we've seen in OpenStack usage, both in the US, but really from a global perspective. And it's everything from banks to telcos to media, etc. It's exciting for us. We're having a good time doing it.
Yeah. This could be totally unrelated question, but when we talk about data protection, how related or unrelated is identity management or identity protection these days?
Well, so within the OpenStack framework, we are registered as another service. So we register with Keystone, etc. And so managing the tenant, we understand who the tenant is. If you were to migrate that workload into a different cloud, you can you can we have trusted key relationship which we can hand off to other clouds as well. But yeah, we understand who the tenant is.
Okay. Now, I'll talk about OpenStack for a brief moment.
Sure.
At the keynote, they talked about open and collaborate, where like there are two different, and last year the focus was on composability, not last year but last conference, which means that people have more flexibility instead of the big giant blob. So what's your perspective on this approach?
So OpenStack in the open source community, and it's all about community, right? We are big fans of community. We are big fans of collaboration. Trilio is not an open source project. However, we want to help the community speed up development, and we think we're partly an enabler for that. Look, for OpenStack to continue and get to the next level and be more inviting for the business units to participate, there has to be and continue to be greater lines of communication. The Foundation's done a wonderful job of doing that. I think from a vendor perspective, there needs to be continued communication there, and we need to continue to celebrate the folks that are using OpenStack. And it's not just the large guys; you have to celebrate the smaller folks too, because there is a cost when we talk about open source, right? It's people power, and that's what community helps with. And there is that call to action that I've seen in a lot of the presentations here about collaboration. Let's have that dialogue. Let's have that communication. Again, from a Trilio perspective, we hope that we promote greater use of that cloud.
This could be an uncomfortable question, but I'm just asking it first.
Okay.
Because I'm a hardcore open source user, and the way we see that open source is kind of becoming the de facto software development model. So I mean, Trilio is, as you said, in a kind of closed source, and this may not be the scope, but do you see any value of because it also depends on the niche of the market, or even if you let's make it more comfortable.
No, that's okay.
So let's add the uncomfortable question. So do you see yourself open sourcing components or going open source because then you can leverage from the wider community?
Yeah. So it's a good question, and we do see doing that in time. Let's not forget our focus. While everyone collaborates around network and storage and compute, we're talking about data protection, right? This is business assurance. It takes a lot of effort to rally community and projects. Organizations don't have that time. So if we focus and we are experts in doing what we do, we'll start there, right? I put my R&D dollars to focus on giving you the best data protection solution so you can go do what you need to do, right? And if you do what you need to do, then your business units who have dollars associated with it will invest in your cloud. So, but to answer your question, we will be open sourcing components in time, but just not today.
Okay, so even if you are closed source, but everything around you is open source.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of engage or contribute, or collaborate with open source? Can you talk about your, kind of involvement with the open source community?
Yeah. So I think one, from a Trilio perspective, as far as us working as a solution within this market, this framework, requires a lot of DevOps on our side. For one, that we need to certify on multiple distributions, as well as upstream, and we want to make sure that we work with all the components. So being open and collaborative and working within an open framework is important to us. How we end up contributing and working with the community is we want the open dialogue. We want you to ask the questions. If you're not asking the questions, we can't answer. We can only promote which we think is best for the community. So that's why we're here. We participate at a lot of the summits. We want the dialogue, and you never know what it can lead to as far as, again, that contribution. But we can always contribute best practices. We can contribute and talk about how your environment or how the rest of this environment works. We want to be good stewards, and that takes time. It takes time.
Yeah, one last question would be,
Sure.
one thing that I keep hearing a lot this year here at OpenStack Summit, though as a science fiction writer, that's one area that I'm really interested in, and that is machine learning. So when you look at data protection,
Yes.
I think you can leverage a lot from machine learning capabilities.
Yeah.
So can you talk about, either you're already using, or in future, can you talk about?
Yeah. No, so it's a good question. I think when you look at machine learning, AI, business intelligence, going back to what we do, capturing that exact moment in time. And Trilio will actually be releasing soon the ability to scan these moments in time, put a stamp on it as a seal of approval, and allows you to vault it. Now, what you can do with the intelligence factor is, now let's dive into those moments of time. Let's learn, right? You can start providing the analysis around that. And I can't do that unless I've got the application and the data, that exact environment framework. So it'll be an evolving and iterative process, and I think what ends up becoming here is data protection, though we talk about backup today, is an evolution that goes from data protection to business assurance and resource management. And because we manage all those components, security becomes an offshoot or component of what we end up doing in time, just because we understand that whole environment.
From my perspective, I got all the broad topics that I want to talk about. Do you think there is anything else we should have touched upon before we wrap it up?
Sure. I do believe, from a community perspective, we do talk a lot about, people love talking about containers, right? They love talking about all these fun, new, inventive things to help manage their clouds and expand their clouds. And provide their end users with these great capabilities. I think the conversation, taking a step back, and this is a little selfish here, is that the conversation has to be around data protection. We need to talk about that because, again, it becomes inviting to your business units to move their applications into this cloud. It's an investment. You've invested in this wonderful cloud. To say that, Mr. End User, I'm not going to adhere to SLAs, or because of that, you can't bring your application into my cloud. That needs to change, right? I get it. In time, you have to. People do rebuild their applications that become more cloud friendly, but let's use that wonderful infrastructure and cloud that you do have. By applying data protection, it becomes inviting to your community to leverage, codify that cloud, use that cloud, bring more production workloads in, and I think you'll have more, you'll have greater success stories within the community.
Thank you, David, a lot for your time, and hopefully we'll see you again at the next OpenStack Summit.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate this. Was great.
Thanks for watching. Listen to more episodes of the New Stack Makers at thenewstack.io/podcast. Please rate and review us on iTunes, like us on YouTube, and follow us on SoundCloud. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.